The Democratic Alliance says it's confident in its City of Johannesburg mayoral candidate, Federal Council Chairperson Helen Zille's years of public service experience. The DA's last mayor was Dr. Mpho Phalatse in 2023, who was ousted in a motion of no confidence under a crumbling coalition. Political analyst Dr. Ebrahim Harvey says Zille as mayor is Joburg's best hope for recovery. He joins us now to tell us more. Good morning, Doctor. Thank you so much for your time.
Good morning to you. Good to be with you.
So why has the city of Johannesburg become such a difficult city to govern? I mean, is it the political fragmentation or the administration crisis or the scale of the city itself?
Well, it's a combination of reasons. And most of the reasons are historically rooted. You mustn't forget that Johannesburg has been the biggest and richest and most powerful metropolis, not just only in South Africa, but in the whole of Africa. Though there's a number of contributing factors, but I can tell you one thing, if you look at since the ANC was in office and then they lost power in 2016, Johannesburg has been steadily, I argue, right from the time of Amos Masondo, on the decline. It is right now facing its biggest infrastructural crisis ever since the city was formed in October 1886. It's never been so bad. I've relocated to Cape Town a few months ago. Everything is crumbling. And I'll tell you why I penned that piece in the Sunday Times supporting Zille. I've interviewed her, with the Motlanthe biography, very confident, very assertive politician. And indeed, I thought, probably one of the most formidable politicians in South Africa. But to pull South Johannesburg out of a terminal crisis, it is in the worst infrastructural systemic crisis, Yeah. And to a large extent, it has got to do with what the ANC didn't do in Johannesburg when it took power. But right now, I think that Helen Zille, to me, if you look at her, she was mayor of the city of Cape Town and the premier of the Western Province. I think the accumulated experience, which is different from Phalatse of 2-3 years, she didn't have the background of Zille at all. And I think there's formidable political skills there. And I think if there's anybody who could perhaps, that is, if the crisis in Joburg has not gone too far, we'll have to see, could turn it around possibly, is Helen Zille.
Now, Dr. Harvey, with that said, some are saying that Helen Zille transformed Cape Town. Now, when we talk about Cape Town, we're not only talking about the city or the suburbs. Do you think that Helen Zille transformed Cape Town?
No, well, you must remember when you put that question to me that there's no doubt, and it's very clear in social media and in commentary, that indeed there's the perception that although relative to other parts of the country, like in Joburg and elsewhere, East Rand, the so-called black African townships, to use statistics language, South Africa's language, is no doubt still facing serious problems in Cape Town. And indeed, there's the public perception that the DA control has been in power since 2016 to favor, the richer white areas. But if you compare Khayelitsha, Gugulethu, Langa to other parts of the country, I mean, it's if you think Joburg is bad, go and see Kimberley, Free State, etc. It's terrible. You can't even navigate the roads, the potholes on the roads. It's just awful. So that's my short answer to you. It's a complicated question, and the answer itself is complicated.
All right. So some argue that Zille is the DA's best chance to stabilize Johannesburg. Others say this is political recycling. So how much of this nomination is about governance, and how much is about political strategy?
No, I think it comes together. I think, the DA, obviously, I believe them when they say that there were other contending people and, possible candidates and that she won. She's very assertive, In fact, I think in the final analysis, to be honest with you, I think John Steenhuisen is in the shadows. I think the DA, to my mind, is run by Helen Zille in the background, So there's no doubt that I think, the strategic considerations were taken into account. I mean, Joburg she's right to say that, and she comes from Johannesburg, there's one city that cannot be left to teeter on the brink of a catastrophic situation. It's already there. The
Sure,
only thing
sure.
is, can she arrest the decline? That
Now,
is the key and critical question.
certainly, we've seen mayor after mayor fail in the city. Right now, we're struggling with water crisis. Kenny Kunene is positioning himself as an alternative. And now Helen Zille is throwing her hat in the ring. So with the elections around the corner, what should voters actually be looking for? And how do you convince people that this time things will be different?
Voters should be looking at what, that is why the ANC, here's your answer to the question you put. You must ask yourself, why did the ANC lose Gauteng 2016 and then again 2021? There's your answer. The slumbering black African electorate, to use that language, was steadily waking up. And you can see bloody nose in 2006. In 2021, you thought they would, maybe the ANC would have come back. They got a bigger hiding in 2021. Basic services, water, sanitation, sewerage, electricity, housing, health. This is the things that I study. This is at the closest heart of that is where the rubber hits the tarmac. The townships. It's not about national politics and parliament. They want basic services, and you can see what's happening in Johannesburg. Basic services is crumbling. I mean, it's never been so bad,
Yeah.
I've studied prepaid water meters, and I'll tell you, the black townships are in the worst situation. And I think we need to go beyond race. Because if you want to pursue race, and it's a very racial, racist country, you'd think, and a lot of people would say, hey, Helen Zille, what the hell are you going to do with Helen's another white mayor? No, I think we need to look beyond. We need to look at the skills. You need to look at why the DA, and listen to what Ramaphosa said this week. It's very important. You should perhaps have a show exclusively on that. Why did Ramaphosa say, which he doesn't even realize he's dug himself into a hole for the two.
That was definitely an own goal, for sure.
I mean, the ANC must look at the DA. What is it that they've got that the DA? I mean, really, I couldn't believe it, I mean,
no one could believe it. Now let's talk about this, Doctor. Joburg is Africa's economic hub, and yet it is increasingly unstable. What does this mean for investor confidence, for jobs, and for citizens who feel abandoned by leadership battles?
I can tell you the answer to your question. You will see the JSE, you will see it, because there's no doubt, that white people still dominate this economy. You just need to look at the JSE. That Helen Zille winning the mayorship of Joburg, I can guarantee you in advance right now this morning. You will see huge changes, economic indicators, prospects. You'll see it reflected on the JSE, etc. That is it. That's the reality, because I think the markets read the situation that Helen Zille, compared to who was there before, would be able, if there's one person who could perhaps turn, and I'm very critical of the DA in many respects, but I'll tell you right now, I think Helen Zille, with her skills and experience in Cape Town especially, I think, and she's very ready, she's from Joburg, she's a Joburg woman, and she studied everything there, born there. She's so ready. If you look at her interviews, I mean, she's biting at the chump to get into this job with absolute determination. But I'll tell you something, I feel sorry for her, because the tasks in Joburg are so huge, the crisis is so deep and systemic, that it would take a real political giant to lead Joburg out of that crisis. And we have to see whether she can deliver the goods.
Well, we can only wait and see. Now, Dr. Harvey, we know that the ANC in Joburg is preparing for its own conference, though the date is yet to be set. Now, two names are emerging. It's Dada Morero and Loyiso Masuku, right? So how significant is this leadership contest for the ANC's future in the city?
Well, I think it is, but I must be honest with you, I don't know, this is just my own personal view. I think Dada Morero, honestly, I think the ANC needs to look beyond him. I mean, really, it just doesn't grab me at all, lacks the political charisma, etc. If it's not going to be Zille that comes into mayorship, I don't know about him continuing in that position, to be honest with you. This is just my own view. He leaves much to be desired, in terms of a leader. And you really need a powerful leader to lead Joburg out of this worst multifaceted crisis it has ever had. And that is why you might think it's ironical that I'm supporting a white woman mayor, Joburg. I think she's the person to do it.
And maybe we need a woman, maybe. I mean, some observers argue that gender representation is critical in reshaping Joburg's politics. So would the ANC benefit from putting forward a woman like Loyiso Masuku at this moment in history?
I think it would. Then you have to look at how does she relate and compare to Zille. And to be honest with you, I know of her. Not know her too much, but I know enough of her to answer the question that Helen Zille has got incomparably more skills and experience to navigate the choppy waters of Joburg than she does. That's my answer to you.
All right. So, Dr. Harvey, before we let you go, now the residents of Johannesburg don't care about party politics or coalition mathematics. They want taps that work. They want lights that stay on. They want jobs and streets they can walk safely in. So what will it take for any leader, regardless of political party, to look beyond the political game and actually serve the people who are suffering?
Hey, man, you know, it's such a loaded question you've put. There are so many different angles that one can respond to. But I'll tell you something, the heart of the crisis in Johannesburg is where I'm born and grew up in also, is socioeconomic. There's criminal issues, justice, there's police, there's a whole lot of stuff, as you know. But the heart of it all, the biggest thing that would lift the mood of people in Johannesburg and make them hopefully look towards a better future is an improvement in service delivery. It's at that worst level ever. And you know what is a big thing I want to leave you is prepaid water meters. And people don't realize it. I studied what devastating impact prepaid technology has had. Water, sanitation and electricity. People don't, and maybe you should have a show that's dedicated to what devastating consequences prepaid water meters and electricity has had on black working class, the very support base of the ANC, which is partly, I think, why they lost 2016 and 2021.
That is indeed a big conversation. Thank you so much for your time, Doctor.
Pleasure.